Hey everybody, how's it going? This is a really beautiful part of Massachusetts. There's this little running water right by the hotel, and you can hear it. Yeah, it sounds really relaxing, doesn't it? This camera has completely useless low-lux video recording, so you're not going to be able to see much of anything. But it's the sound that really does it. Way more than the video. So today I wanted to discuss a comment that I had received on a video that I had done on employment and unemployment benefits and employee loyalty a few months ago. This video was about how lots of people are not returning to demeaning jobs after the pandemic. Now, there were a few people that pointed out that the very generous government unemployment benefits and government printing money is not a free market thing, and that has a lot to do with people's decision making. And 100% that is most certainly a part of it. But one of the things that I think is important to discuss is something that's going on now that I find similar to what happened 13 years ago. It is a feature of recessions. It's not a bug, it's a feature of them, which is that people recognize that there is no such thing as a, quote, steady and stable job. For many people, they thought that they could pursue their dreams, they could pursue starting a business, they could pursue starting a freelancer, but that had a downside, which is that they could lose their income at any given time. So they traded following their dreams, they traded following their passion, their hearts, for what it is they really wanted to do with their life for a stable paycheck. And once they realized that they could work someplace for 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 years and get tossed out on their ass with really no way to know if they were still going to be able to have a salary, no way to know if they were still going to be able to support their family or pay rent, that it didn't really make sense for them to continue doing that. Because the one thing they got in exchange for not following their dreams, which was the semblance of a stable life, was taken away from them. So in 2008, I remember I was working for anywhere from $0 to $10 an hour for this one particular studio that I was interning at, and I put my hard blood, sweat, and tears into making that place as good as it could humanly be. And when they hit a roadblock during the end of 2008, instead of trying to work through it, they shut down the business. And after 2 years of killing myself to try and make that place better, I learned a lesson. I learned the lesson that I am not going to work to build other people's dreams. I'm going to work to build my own. I am never going to care more about someone else's company than they do about their company. And I started doing this. And one of my good friends at the time also lost his job at a digital camera sales company. They were getting their ass kicked by B&H anyway, so it really was only kind of a matter of time before they were gone. But he got laid off, and he also made the decision that he was going to just go and follow his dream. He was only working for that particular digital camera company because he believed that it offered him job stability that he would not get from running his own studio and doing his own production work. And not only does he now do his own production work, but he makes more money and has more stable income than he did back then. But he would have never gone out to do that full time on his own without getting the kick in the ass of leaving. So there are a lot of employers now that are wondering, why can't I get people to come back to work? Why can't I get someone to come back to the job that they had before? They were happy with getting $12 an hour before. Why aren't they happy getting $12 an hour now for whatever it is that they were doing? And the reality of it is, generous unemployment benefits, by all means, that's going to have something to do with it. I've interviewed people last year that said, I will only take this job, even when they pay over $20 an hour, for minimum, like bare bones skill stuff. I'm only going to take it if you pay me under the books, at which point I politely tell them, go gargle my balls and go find a job elsewhere. You're not worth going to prison for. But there is that element to it of, man, it doesn't make sense to go back to the way things were before, because I thought I had job stability and now I don't. Now, one of the best ways to get your employees back is to have never let them go to begin with. Now, there was one gentleman that said that when I had said that I had retained my people, that it was really disingenuous for me to say that and not tell people that I had applied for the PPP program. I thought this was pretty funny because I had about 5 or 10 videos last March and April, pretty much step by step going through the PPP process, literally day after day. The keywords of the videos say PPP. The title of the video says PPP. It's as transparent as I think it can get. And in those videos, there is something very clear, which is that for many businesses, there was about a month to 3 month gap between many areas having lockdowns that destroyed the businesses in those areas and the PPP program ever distributing any funds or even being announced as something that may be coming down the line. And one of the things that I had done before I even knew that PPP was a thing, before I had heard of PPP, before it was announced, before I had ever applied, was I made a commitment that I am going to keep the people that I have, and if my business goes under, I will go down with the ship. And what I like to think that did is I think that in spite of the fact that I'm a piece of garbage to work for, in spite of the fact that I'm a horrible boss, a horrible employer, and a horrible business owner, that it sends the message that you are not disposable. You know, again, I'm quick to let go of people that no longer care about their job, that no longer do a good job, that no longer seem to care. But for the core staff that really care about what they do, that do a good job on a regular basis, if we're going down with the ship, if the ship is going down, I will go down with that ship. I made that commitment that I was going to pay people even if they wanted to stay home because of COVID, and that I would pay the people that came to work what their old salary was, whether they came to work or didn't come to work, before any government programs were announced, before any of that was announced. I never had to worry about rehiring my staff because I never let them go. One of the easiest ways to get people to go back to work is to not let them go to begin with. And I know that this may seem somewhat unfair for me to say now, after being in business over a decade, to someone who's only been in business for, let's say, 6 months to 18 months, who may not have that ability or that luxury to be able to make that commitment when business has dropped by 50 or 60 or 80% because your governor is a dictator like ours was. But that's one of the ways that you keep people. And I know that that's something that's really difficult for many business owners to accept. But one of the few things that you offered people that they didn't get from their own freelance work was that feeling of job security, of job stability. I may not get paid well here. I may not get treated well here. I may not like how customers talk to me here. This may not be fulfilling, but at the end of the day, I don't have to stress over whether or not I'm going to be able to pay my bills, whether or not I'm going to be economically destroyed, whether or not my savings is going away, whether or not my debt is going up, and whether or not my landlord will be paid. And once that's taken away from them, once they realize that's not there, you can't give that back to them. You can give them back their salary, but you will never be able to give them back that sense of security. And what happens during recessions, and this is a feature, not a bug, is people figure out that there is no such thing as a steady job. My father figured this out for himself in the late 80s. He worked on Wall Street, and he decided that he was going to change careers in his 40s right after he just had a newborn and had a lot of stress in his life due to health issues that were going on with members of his family, and that he was going to go to school to become a professional chef. He did that because he realized that even though Wall Street actually paid considerably better than becoming a chef, that the job security just was not there, as he watched many people that he had worked with from childhood just, go from firm to firm to firm and get, fired from there, fired from here, that were 10 to 30 years older than he was. And at some point, it didn't even matter if he was laid off and they just took him back later. It sent a message to him that when the going gets tough, his boss is going to let him go. And he wanted to be able to do something where, in an industry where that just wasn't the norm. And at least in the early 90s, that was not the norm. And he did have job security at the restaurants that he wound up working with for. He eventually wound up working his way to the work at the Plaza Hotel as the first cook. And, that's not a job where they are just kicking you out because this week we didn't sell as much food as we did last week. And it's the same thing for a lot of employees. When they realize that the one thing that they were staying at your company for no longer exists, you're not going to be able to get them back for the same amount of money that you paid before. It doesn't matter what you can offer them in dollars, because they realize that that job security, that one thing that kept them from following their dreams, is gone. And they're going to now go and follow their dream. And as I had mentioned in that video, several of the people that finally went to follow their dream because they were forced to, because they had no other way to make money, actually realized that they make more money that way. They were afraid to go out on their own and start their own business. They were afraid to become a freelancer. But once they became a freelancer, they realized, wait a second, I used to take home like $400 a week. Now I take home $9. And yeah, I got to deal with a little bit more work, but I take home twice as much. I like that. I don't want to go back to the way things were before. Same thing with office space. You have a lot of people that are now deciding to work from home. Now, many businesses are going to be reluctant to have their employees work from home, because getting people to work from home is difficult if you are a manager. It's a difficult management experience to figure out how you make that work. How do you take a company with 10,000 employees that work in an office and figure out how to manage them at home? If you're profitable the way you were before, you may not want to, just kind of do this thing that's going to take up a lot of your time, going to require building a whole new plan when you already have things working as is. But once the government forces you to not go to the office, once they force you to have your employees work from home, now you're forced to figure it out. And once you figure it out, and you figure out that you actually, after a couple of months of growing pains, you can actually have all of your employees work from home, man, it does beg the question, hey, why are we paying $150 a square foot for 200,000 square feet of office space? What if we just paid for 10,000 square feet of office space? Now the landlords are looking at them and saying, listen, why aren't you coming back to the office? Hell, we'll even take 10% off. And it's like, wait, yeah, but we just figured out that the one reason that we had all this office space is because we thought we needed an office. And now that we were forced to come up with plans to work without an office, and it works, and we made it work, why am I going to pay like $4 or $8 or $100,000 a month or whatever to have all this office space that we don't need anymore? You're not going to get people to go back to the way things were before once they've adapted. And what I think has happened to a lot of people is over the past year and a half, they've adapted to what it's like to have to fend for themselves, to have to come up with freelance gigs, to have to find side jobs, to have to go into business for themselves because they were let go. And you're not going to get them back by offering them the exact same amount of money that they got before. And I think you're going to notice this, and I could be wrong here, and I'm open to being wrong. But I think even once all the extended unemployment benefits end, I think that you're going to find that a lot of those employees are still choosing to not go back to their old jobs. I don't know how long my video wasn't in focus for. That's kind of... Yeah, the S10e camera is very unimpressive. But anyway, I think you're going to find that even once extended unemployment benefits end, that a lot of people are not going to go back to their old jobs because they have realized that there are other ways to make money, there are better ways to make money, and that at the end of the day, one of the few things that they thought they were getting, which is job security, they were not getting. And I kind of wonder if I had let go of my employees, March 10th, March 12th, when it was, Cuomo was floating the idea of a pause order, and then I only let them back in the store in May or June, would they have all come back? I think that some of them may have, but I think a lot of them would have said, screw this, and they probably would have found other ways to make money on their own and not come back. Maybe they would have pursued something. It's impossible to tell, but I wanted to send the message that at the very least, one of the things that you are getting from having a job versus having your own business, which is some general sense of stability, is a sense that you'll get here. And if this was a bad decision, if this was something that's not going to work, if I screwed up and I made the wrong calculation, then I will be going down with the ship with you. There will be no more Rossman Repair Group. We'll see. One way to figure out. And that's a decision that I think I would have stuck to regardless of whether there were any sort of government programs that came out, regardless of whether there were, any sort of PPP thing came out later. And God knows that entire system was an absolute mess. That it came out considerably after the lockdowns were already announced. It took forever to distribute funds. They actually changed the rules at one point. I remember doing 2 videos on this where they issued an update, but they issued the update that invalidated your prior application and how you applied for it, which was hysterical. Like, after many people had already applied, and if you had applied using this information instead of the updated information, you could get declined. Like, it was a, I could go on about that for weeks. But yeah, if you're an employer, one of the things that you are selling, and I think it's important to understand, one of the things that you're selling is the idea of job stability. And when that's taken away, it's going to take a lot more to get your people back. And I think that that's going to last long after the government extended unemployment benefits end. I think a lot of people are following their dreams, and honestly, I wish them the best of luck with the dreams that they're following. And maybe think of it as a positive thing. Maybe don't think of it as just a bunch of people that are being lazy and deciding not to work. Probably a lot of those people that are actually working a lot harder than you think. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.